Hey everyone, just want to take a few minutes in this video and go over our Ironman baseball game expectations. So just want to touch on a few things, and the first thing we're going to start with is the fact that umpires are not the enemy. And what do we mean by that? Well, we need to remember that umpires are human beings too. And what that means is that umpires are not perfect. And they're people, they have value. Do some people work harder than others as umpires? Do some people care more than others? Yes, but the simple fact is we need to remember that umpires, they're human beings. And so we need to treat them with the respect that is due to them simply because they are a human being. The next thing we need to remember is that bad calls are going to happen. And so we might as well prepare for them ahead of time. Every single game that we play in, there's probably going to be a missed call, maybe several. And knowing that we're going to experience bad calls allows us to prepare for that fact ahead of time. And that preparation is what's going to help all of us, players, parents, coaches, and fans, to be prepared for that to happen because it's guaranteed to happen. The next thing is we need to remember our context. We're talking about youth baseball here, and more specifically, there's actually in baseball, especially in youth baseball, there's a significant umpire shortage. There are not enough umpires with quality training to cover all of the games and all the different tournaments. So these tournament organizations are doing their best to literally fill spots, and we're going to get umpires that are literally all over the map in terms of their training, their ability, and that means that we're going to have a ton of different experiences in terms of the quality of our umpires, because this is youth baseball. These umpires are not making a lot of money. They are not doing this professionally. And so remembering that context is going to help us remember that umpires are not the enemy. And the fact is, we're going to have umpires that are simply not equipped the way they should be to do their job effectively. We want to remember that who we're competing against, and we are always competing against the game and our opponents. We're never competing against the umpire. So if we try to vilify the umpire and act like we're playing against them and we turn them into an opponent that takes away our focus, then we're not going to play the game as well as we could, and we're not going to be able to compete against our opponent as well as we could. And the last thing, and probably the most important thing, is just simply that it's not the umpire's fault, even when it is. So I don't want to pretend to say that like umpires making bad calls, that doesn't have an effect on the game, because clearly it can. And especially the later the game, the bigger the situation, the more a bad call feels like it impacts the game. But the bottom line from a competitive standpoint is this: if we think that the umpire is the reason we lost the game, then we didn't play well enough to win the game in the first place. No umpire is going to be the reason why we lose a game. Because if we put ourselves in a position where we're relying on a close bang-bang play for us to get the win, then we didn't do what we should have done earlier in the game to separate ourselves, to solidify the game, and to keep things in our own hands rather than put it in the umpire's hands. So, do umpires making bad calls, does it affect the game? Yes, it can, but it's not the umpire's fault even when it is, because the reality is, if we're going to win a game, we simply need to play the game of baseball better than our opponent. And if we do that the right way, then no one call an umpire makes is ever going to be the reason why we win or lose. The next thing I want to talk about with our game expectations is something you've probably seen before, but it's important to revisit here. And that's simply that there are 4 roles for any person at a youth baseball game. And our responsibility, all of us that are a part of this program, our responsibility is to choose one. So what are those 4 roles? The first one is the player. Okay, pretty self-explanatory who the players are. And the player's job is simply to compete to the best of your ability every single pitch. That's your focus. So if you're a player, that's your role. Compete to the best of your ability every single pitch. The next role is a coach. And the role of a coach is to do everything in your power to give your players the best chance for success. Everything we do on game day as a coach should be focused on what can we do to set our players up for success in the best way we can, controlling the things that we can control. The third role is a parent or a fan. And frankly, as a parent or a fan, I know that we're going to be emotionally invested in the outcome and in the result and how well our team and most especially our players are playing. But really, we have one job as a parent and a fan, and that is to be a consistent source of positivity and encouragement. Nothing else. No complaining, no evaluating, no coaching from the stands is what is going to help your player compete to the best of his abilities. So as a parent or a fan, then our job is simply to be consistent and being positive and encouraging from the stands. And the fourth role in a youth baseball game is an umpire. And simply put, none of us are umpires. So as we just talked about with the fact that umpires are not the enemy, we're just simply not going to complain or argue about calls. Now, will emotions get the best of us sometimes? Yes, but we have to remember we're not the umpire. We're either a player, a coach, or a parent/fan, and we need to live into that role based on what it is and not get caught up in trying to be the umpire from the stands. The last thing that I want to talk about in terms of our game expectations is we want to be the example for others. So what do we mean by that? Well, the first thing is we're striving to be the example of what youth baseball is supposed to be like. There are definitely plenty of good examples of youth baseball, but all of us have seen and experienced firsthand how broken youth baseball can be. And so what we're doing with Ironman Baseball is we're trying to be the example for others and show what it's supposed to be like with how we interact with people and how we show up, how we prepare, how we play, how we treat people. We want to show what youth baseball is capable of, and we want to be the example of what it's supposed to look like. And the way we know that we're succeeding being the example for others is opposing teams, umpires, and tournament directors, they should know us as a team because of how we treat others. Because if we do this, we're going to stand out in a lot of games. And we're going to play teams where they're not acting the way you should as youth baseball in the context of youth baseball. And so if we do this the right way, then we're going to stand out as lights in the darkness, if you will, as examples of what youth baseball should be like. And hopefully that example can be inspiring to others. The last thing I want to end with is just reminding you of our motto, and that is, as iron sharpens iron, so one person sharpens another. And this is the core of what we do and who we are and why we exist. And everything we do revolves around, number one, trying to make the people around us better by the way we treat them, by the way we act, by the way we lead with our character. And it's also about surrounding ourselves with people who are going to speak into our lives and are going to make us better by their example. And so when it comes to game expectations, everything we do should revolve around our motto, as iron sharpens iron, so one person sharpens another, because we can make each other better. We can make opposing teams better, opposing fans. We can help tournament directors see what youth baseball is supposed to be like. And this is the essence of who we are and what we do. So if you're ever in doubt about our game expectations, remember our motto, because that's going to guide you along the way.